So typically an executive order, someone will come out and say, like, I deem this to be true. Like, this is now what we're doing. What Biden is saying is, like, he woke up one morning and was eating his Lucky Charms and said, here are some thoughts I have.
Here are 72 thoughts I have.
Yeah.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Hello, good friend.
I see you still haven't made it home. How is it sleeping on other people's beds for 3 weeks?
It's been nice, but I'm ready.
Yeah.
But it's not time quite yet. So this is my last day in Lake Tahoe, recording from the brother and sister-in-law's abode. Very appreciative of their podcast studio they provided for me. Yeah, shout out. Heading to the Bay Area a little later today, and then we're there for a few more days, then heading back to Denver. So it's still not time.
Can you say hi to Chamath for me?
Sure.
Perfect.
Skippy says hello.
Tell him I love his value investing. I mean, just tell him I'm so impressed. I also like wonderful. How his this is a little rant, but you saw his annual letter where he did 11 years worth of performance and compared it to 10 years worth of performance for Buffett, and then he got roasted for it.
Are you familiar with cherry picking?
Oh, I'm very familiar. All right, we better actually get to it.
I want to kick us off with a quiz.
I love quizzes.
Okay,
I love being humiliated in front of our international audience.
This is gonna be great. This one is guess which company. And I'm gonna give you some hints. Okay.
Pool Corporation.
I mean, come on, man. At least you gotta wait till the end.
Right.
Okay.
Go.
So I'm going to declare this company the official indicator of a bubble. Okay, I'm gonna call it that. That's the Doogles call out.
Yeah.
So a few facts. This company was founded in 1996 in California to take advantage of the internet boom by some MBA students. Okay, which was basically what was happening all throughout the mid to late 90s. I got these business school students. They raised 3 rounds in 3 years, and then 1999 they said, let's make our dreams come true and go public. IPO, right?
Yep.
IPO goes to the moon. Not quite to the moon, but it went pretty high. So it had about a 6x return, right, until the height of the internet bubble, and then bursts. With the force of 1,000 kings, this thing bursts. Goes down by 97%. Okay, so far it sounds like many other organizations, right?
Yeah, it sounds like something stock you'd like to pick up.
Oh, I tried. So basically the stock does almost nothing except when it's bubble time. It goes up about another 6x before the great financial crisis. So for a few years does nothing, goes up another 6x. Then that time goes down by about 80%. Then hangs out for another few years. And then between 2015-ish, 2016 until now, it's gone up by 9 or 10x.
Ooh,
and then last week, there's an announcement. Getting acquired.
Well, I mean,
I told you nothing about what they do, because the moment I tell you anything about what they do, you know who it is. But do you have any guesses just from that?
I'm trying to think who got acquired last week. No, so I'll just tell you what's going on in my head. I don't have a great guess for you, but I wonder if they ever really had a product. I'll bet you in the 1999 time, a product or a service, they really didn't. And so I'm actually amazed they made it past that first bubble to the second bubble. Just the staying power is pretty impressive. This is software, I assume. Is that a good guess?
Yes, because every company in the world has software. Well played.
I don't know. What is it?
Okay, now I'll give you a little clue about what they do. They have been affiliated for most of their lives very closely with the USPS, the Postal Service.
I have no idea.
Okay, if you want to mail something, but way back in the olden days,
Stamps.com.
Boom.
Stamps.com.
Crushing it.
So Stamps.com. I never followed the stock. I mean,
what?
How? No, I never followed the stock.
You and 99% of the rest of the world have never followed the stock.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's kind of like Stamps.com is similar to that, Pets.com, that was always thrown out, except it stuck around, which is different. But it's the stock that if you're watching a I don't know, like an early 2000s movie, and they talk about how their uncle got rich. They're always like, they bought stamps.com. Like it's like it's like the, I don't know, the meme around the internet bubble, but they're getting acquired for a few $1 billion.
I guess I get in like 99, everyone was like, oh, the whole world is moving to the internet, and like, oh, the ability to do postage online is like this novel concept. So I get the 6X at that time. But the rest of the stuff, like USPS, UPS, all those websites are pretty solid now. It's very easy to print postage. Like, why is there a 10X run up right now? What does stamps.com offer that you can't get somewhere else?
So I don't know. I've read almost nothing about stamps.com ever, but I'm going to give you some just speculation. Is the speculation I can think of is that given the last 20 years or so, like what's been hot around tech and e-commerce, is that around these bubble times, e-commerce sites are also like shipping goes up generally. And
Yeah.
so therefore stamps.com also goes up. I know they've made some acquisitions over the last few years. So they have like this little like shipping empire. Like I guess that they have. They're like $800 million in revenue. It's interesting. So they've got something going on, but that's my only guess is that
Well,
when shipping
hold
goes up, they
on.
go up.
Oh, I mean, let's just have fun where we're like armchair experts here on a stock we haven't researched. But 800 million in revenue, and probably like 799 million of that goes to actually buying the postage that is required. Like, there can't be a great margin on this. I don't go to stamps.com and pay more money to ship a package than I would at upss.com, right? Do I?
Well, I don't know what you do. So only you can
I
tell
don't
me
do
what you
anything. Who acquired them?
It's a private equity firm.
Well, that explains it.
It kind of does make
They're
sense.
sitting on
for
too
this
much
to be-
money. I mean, they're just sitting on too much capital.
So this is not a half bad P&L here. So if I look at their trailing 12 months, $795 million in revenue, their gross profit, $614 million. So I mean that's pretty solid.
Huh.
Their net income, so after all the nonsense, right, is I just lost it. 196 million. I mean it's a decent business.
I don't believe any of those numbers.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. They
Research.
$337 million in operating cash flow from the last 12 months. This is like a private equity company's dream.
No, there's a lot to like. I just don't understand how.
Yeah,
There's
a
almost
lot to
no
like.
debt. There's lots of cash on hand. Revenues are skyrocketing relative to the last 10 years. Wow. A little share dilution going on. I think we just wrap by saying that could be an interesting 10K to read because the financials are way more solid than you would expect.
You wouldn't expect it, I think, and so it's interesting.
Yeah, so there's a few more things to talk about, I think, if we're ready to transition. First is
What if we're not ready to transition? We are. Okay, we are.
First is we consulted with our graduate intern, social media consultant, and she told us that we needed to give stickers to the listeners. We have the world's greatest contest coming up. If you review the pod and shoot us a screenshot via Twitter or Gmail, we're going to shoot you a sticker. If you send listener mail into the pod, we're going to shoot you a sticker. We obviously need you to send your address information. If you take Doogles, you know the Itchy and Scratchy theme song from The Simpsons?
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think we should have one of the listeners who's talented musically re-record that with Skippy and Doogles, like the Skippy and Doogles show? Like, wouldn't that be totally sick?
You've gone buck wild crazy.
Well, if a listener wants to do that, we're going to send you lots of stickers. Jokes aside, we did secure some stickers. They're pretty sweet. 3-inch by 3-inch podcast logo. We'd love to hook you up. Shoot us email at skippydoogles@gmail or hit us up on Twitter, DMs at skippydoogles. And we'd love to hook you up with some merch. We appreciate the listener and engagement for sure.
Cool.
All right. So now we have China, Biden, healthcare costs, education costs. Where do you want to go, Douglas?
Let's start with Biden because you were getting Biden fatigue. So I took a little break. I don't think I did, actually. I think I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure I brought this
yeah.
up every week. But this time, though, this time he's not coming with the I want to spend $1 trillion. So that's good.
I want to interrupt you for one point. I just want to say hello, Mr. President. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We appreciate you taking all our suggestions and running with it. We also really like your staff.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for the interlude. So this week he signs an executive. Technically, it's called an executive order. I'm going to call it an executive non-order because have you looked through this thing or looked at the summary of it?
I read an article or two,
Yeah.
but my fatigue is still hurting me on this front.
So there are 72 initiatives in this, which sounds aggressive at face value and is quite aggressive. The non-aggressive part of it, though, is that there's no order in it. So typically an executive order, someone will come out and say, like, I deem this to be true. Like, this is now what we're doing. What Biden is saying is, like, he woke up one morning and was eating his Lucky Charms and said, here are some thoughts I have.
Here are 72 thoughts I have.
Yeah, here are 72 thoughts by Jack Handy. So I'm going to give just a few flavors of this from a directional standpoint as to where his brain is. It's of what he would like to be true. I think there's some interesting flavor in there, but it is fairly random at the same time. It seems like. So
it seemed like not all the 72 bullets like directly tied together or were like on the same subjects even, which is really bizarre.
Well, they all had to do with America.
You're killing me.
So he's encouraging, and everything is like, I'm encouraging. I hope that it would be nice for, right? That's like how they all start. So he's encouraging.
I love a pay raise.
Yeah, yes. 400 grand is really not doing it anymore. He's encouraging the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, to ban non-compete agreements, which is effectively how California works right now. His purpose is he's saying we need workers to be more economically mobile and to be able to make more wages. And what he brings up specifically is around fast food workers. And he's saying if you leave McDonald's, now you can't work at Burger King. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. That's a thing? Fast food workers can't?
This is what Biden brings up. He said something like, are there trade secrets in the patty? That's the question that he asks, because he's saying, like, you're telling me I can't go get this other job where, let's say I make $11 an hour here. Across the street, if I can make $12 an hour, Biden's saying, like, you should be able to go do that. But there's something in the employment agreement that says non-compete or something like that. I have not researched fast food employment agreements, but this seems to be the case. So that's what he's after.
Okay.
That's one example. Another one is he wants greater scrutiny of tech mergers, and especially what are deemed quote unquote killer acquisitions, which is one where you just buy a company because it's going to be competitive. So Facebook, Instagram, right? An example of that.
Yeah, I know. Mr. President, that's what I said last week. Yep. Nice work on this. I appreciate you signing this executive order with that. I made one of the 72 bullets.
Yeah, well played. Relatedly, he wants hearing aids to be over the counter.
Oh, wait, you're not joking right now?
No,
that's in the same. No, that's in the same document.
Yes,
Facebook, Instagram, hearing aids. This is amazing.
Yeah,
this is the greatest thing.
He's requesting that there are new rules around when made, or like when made in the USA as a stamp can go on beef.
But not on beef, right? Like on the packaging.
Like yes,
beef?
on the packaging. Yeah. He wants to decrease shipping and freight costs. And then he's really looking out for the people, because he thinks that it's ludicrous, and you will too, when airlines will not refund your lost baggage fees. And so he wants airlines to do that.
Whoa. Okay. I mean, hearing aids, baggage fees? Like, what?
Tech mergers? It is. There's 72 of these.
The baggage fees what really threw me for a loop. So, like, if I go and lose my luggage, and how does this work exactly? What does Biden want to change?
I think he wants to require that airlines have to refund that. So it would be something that would, I guess, the FAA or whatever would have to have it in their literature, whoever like dictates it. So I'm joking about all this. I think there are a couple broad themes that he has generally. Those broad themes are he wants America to be more competitive. So in addition to tech mergers, he talked about bank mergers, which I'm not sure that that's a real thing he has to worry about, but regardless, but he talked about bank mergers. So he wants competition. And the other one is he wants more consumer friendly practices. Like that's what he's broadly after. And so while I was joking about the airline refund thing, it kind of falls in that category of he's saying there are some ridiculous things that gouge Americans from a price perspective, and we don't
Yep.
need to do that. So like the concentration in the freight and shipping industries, he's saying, look, that ends up passing along costs because of pricing power, et cetera, to our consumers. So we don't want that. So it's a fairly random list, but thematically, I think you can tie it to competitive pressures and wanting to have a more competitive market and consumer pricing. But it's still 72 initiatives in a non-order might not be the right way to go about it. I don't know. I'm not a political science expert, but that's what he was doing with his Lucky Charms.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally there's some good themes in there. Probably the devil's always in the details when it comes to government regulation of business competition, right? I mean, it's tough to say. There's a fine line if you just talk shipping. There's a fine line where consolidation reduces costs because of scale, and then at a certain point you get towards monopolistic practices, which probably increases costs. So finding that sweet spot is a tough thing. It's true that most of these were asking another government agency to look more closely into these practices and then develop new policies which may have impacts here, correct? So like this is just going to be something that we talk about for the next 6 to 24 months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Because in some cases he's saying, look, over the next 45 days, can you bring back a plan?
Yep.
Stuff like that. And so there's, again, it's a non-order. So I don't think there's anything in here that says this is going to be true. It's simply here are things that probably should be true. Government agencies, can you go forth, be merry, and bring me back plans?
Yyep. Which
will
be interesting.
The hearing aid one, I think, was specifically a selfish move on his part.
Yeah, seriously.
He's having problems getting doctor's notes.
So great. Well, so how do you think Biden would do if he was the president of China?
Not great, to be honest. The last time that there was an old white man that was elected as president of China.
Seriously, stop it. It's too good. So Didi, right? The Chinese ride sharing company. Actually, I looked at the stock for the first time this week. You know why? Because I love it when things fall off a cliff. I get excited when stocks go down like 80%. And this thing, I think it's only down 60% or so, but it's fallen off a cliff. I wonder why.
I don't think it's even 60%. I think it's like 30%.
Oh, come on.
It's only been around for a week.
Hey, don't bring facts to this conversation. It IPO'd last week. It's way down.
Yeah. And this was a highly anticipated IPO. I think it's the largest since Alibaba, I think, from China. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Went public last week and immediately do not pass go, do not collect $200. Like we're having none of it. And this gets back to the broader theme that we've discussed over the past pretty much since the beginning around China and its crackdown. And it's only intensified. There was if you go back to, I mean, you can go back even further than this, but from our conversations, you go back to the fall when our good friend Jack Ma it was recommended that he, take a little step back. And so
for those who don't know, we did a whole podcast on like basically where's Jack Ma, and that was a thing. And it was basically the start of this crackdown on, well, for several reasons. The Chinese government, Doogles, by the way, thanks for making me talk about China so much so I can never travel over there. They're going to throw me in a prison for having...
they're just waiting.
You are definitely I am on
public
some
enemy
list.
number one.
I haven't even said anything bad. I just would like them to have a little more free markets. But so yeah, we were looking for Jack Ma. We finally found him, but they reduced his influence, it seems, greatly. They don't want Jeff Bezos or a Bill Gates to be larger than the country, it seems. And with Didi, apparently, they never really wanted them to go public in the U.S. markets. They don't have much desire for them to raise money over here. And so this is a whole mess, I think. It sounds like Didi tried to please both their investors and the Chinese government and failed at both, and now they're seeing the consequences of that.
Yeah, and it's for the market impact broadly, right, on all this China stuff. There's so many forces at work, and China's been over the past, I guess, Alibaba went public in 2014, something like that. So during that time, even before then a bit, but especially during that time, these tech giants like Tencent and Alibaba have like done really well here. And so it's been viewed as behemoth of a outside the US, investment vehicle.
Yeah.
And then starting, so if you go back last fall, we talked about the Jack Ma thing, right? Ant Group was going to be the largest IPO like ever or something. It was
Ever,
just this
yeah.
huge financial company. It didn't happen. And then you also had a Trump, as he was getting near the end of his presidency, came out and started blacklisting Chinese firms for two reasons. One, he said that he might blacklist some because they wouldn't hit our auditing requirements, and the other, he was saying that there were Chinese firms that were allegedly had too close ties to the Chinese military, and so from a security perspective, he blacklisted them. I personally got caught up in that hot mess, right, because of my fantastic China Mobile investment. Where I was like,
Yes.
let me just dip a toe over here, and someone cut my toe right off. Like did not work out. And then more recently, and pop in if you have other examples here, but to throw out a few things that have happened over the last few months, you mentioned Didi, which just happened. China is throwing out security concerns around, I'd say, just like listings, foreign listings overall.
Yes.
And the way, are you familiar with VIEs?
Mm.
Okay, there might be some way you pronounce it like VIs or Vs or something like that, but variable interest entities is what that stands for. I didn't know this before I was looking into this, but the China apparently has some regulation that already makes it difficult for their own companies to list overseas. And so the way that Chinese companies have been doing this is they'll set up a shell company, and that shell company will have access to, like, they'll say something like, I don't know if this is real, but let me give you an example. It'll be like Tencent American Co., right, is the shell company.
Yeah.
And Tencent American Co. Has the right to have 100% of the profit that's created by Tencent. And then if you want to buy Tencent, the American depository receipt, if you want to buy that here, you're actually buying stock in that holding company, not stock in Tencent. And so like that's a way they've gotten around it. And so now China's trying to go after those. Another example is, and this is, again, I know you keep bringing up, you're like, Terrence, stay out of China. And I keep trying to buy visas to get over there, trying to like bribe my way in. But there's a company that I bought for the first time last year and then re-upped this year. Thank goodness. That's a Tall Education Group, Tomorrow Advancing Life, which is just, it's just wonderful. They're like a tutoring K-12 education company. And earlier this year, back in March, China came out and said, this actually gets back to your lying flat thing. I think the government heard that. They heard you talking about lying flat, and they're like, this is a great idea. We shouldn't educate our kids as much. And so they basically came out and said that Chinese parents are trying too hard to keep their kids educated. And so tutoring shouldn't really be a thing. And we're going to come out later this year with strong regulation. They haven't announced what that is yet, but it sent Tall Education Group quite a darling of a stock from 90 to 20. So it's dropped like nearly 80% in the past 3 months. So they keep coming out with all these different either regulations or threats of regulation that are throwing things for quite a loop on the back of us also wanting to delist Chinese companies. So America is saying no to China, China is saying no to China, and I'm just stuck in the middle. I'm just an innocent bystander.
Friends, you see what happens when you follow Doogles stock picks over here? Like, just getting crushed.
That's why this is not investment advice.
Yeah, exactly. Man,
Sorry,
I don't know.
Rant.
No, it's all good. On the China piece, I don't know that I fully understand. I can't claim that I fully understand the government or a lot of things over there, but I don't really see what's so bad about raising money internationally. I think that benefits the companies that benefit your people and your economy and your tax base. So I don't really follow this. The Jack Ma piece I got, in a way, it was like he was becoming an icon for that region, and I don't think that was thought of kindly. I don't even know who the founder of Didi is, and I don't particularly care.
I think she's a pretty formidable figure. Anything, if I'm thinking about the right company, before, because when Travis, the former CEO of Uber, tried to go over to China, she basically did like a Mutombo, finger shake, and he was straight out of there and just bought. I think Uber basically just invested in Didi and then got out. But yeah, the three pieces of rationale that I've read, and there's always stuff behind this, but one is what you brought up. There will be no Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg of China is like one theme. A second one seems to be around just for competitive purposes, not wanting to financially benefit Americans specifically. I think this much. While they might talk about overseas broadly, it's really about the US not wanting to benefit financially American investors and whatnot all that much. And the third is around cybersecurity concerns.
Sorry. I got to jump in on the point too. That is pretty rich, man. That assumes that like all stocks go up. Like, I mean, you could be robbing Americans of money if the stock fails. There's no guarantee that this is. I mean, there's risk associated with investing in businesses. Am I crazy? Or is Didi such a slam dunk that it's obviously not? Because look what happened to the stock in the past week because of the regulatory concerns.
So one, on the Didi piece, that one wasn't, we didn't give the rationale before. That was not just because of regulatory concerns. China came out and said they forced organizations to take the app out of their app stores.
Yeah, true.
So like that's like a direct, you cannot get the app right anywhere. I mean, it just shows you the power they have. But I hear you with the not all stocks go up, but these ones that are like the big ones that are trying to go public over here, or like Didi, it may not go up, right? I'm not saying the stock's gonna go up, but they're like big time IPOs. And so even if it doesn't go up, the people that are backing it are gonna make buku wuku.
Buku wuku.
Yeah, look it up. It's an investing term.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, so anyway, yeah. So China getting hit from the US saying things, from China saying things, the threat of regulation, and then killing me on the education front.
Right. So, I love a good falling knife. And so I saw the buzz around Didi and decided to pull the stock and was like, whatever. So it's down, 30+%. Not enough to get me excited, but I decided to do some research to see if maybe it falls 80 to 90% if I'd be interested. It's still not profitable, man. Like, I can't even really get excited about this. It's this high growth. One day we're going to make some money. I just don't know about these business models. Show me that you actually make money and do it on a consistent basis, and maybe I'll be interested.
Stamps.com.
Gosh. Can we talk about education since we brought up Tal Education Group?
Yeah, let's do it.
We got awesome listener mail. Again, I think this is from Donald Kent. It's out on the Twitter. We talked about the Mark Andreessen conversation with Patrick O'Shaughnessy last week, and he sent over a really awesome article from the New York Times from 2015. I can't do this article justice, but if you're interested, check it out on the Twitter. It basically breaks education into 3 tiers. Your world's top universities that accept less than 10% of applicants, call it the Ivies and a few others. And then your public universities that are certainly the world's elite, but also have a mandate to educate a broader range of people. Typically things that start with University of, could be University of North Carolina, could be University of California, whatever the case. And then this third bucket, which is less prestigious institutions that are more, their mandate is to educate people. And so the pricing dynamics of those 3 tiers vary greatly because of their mandates, which is a huge complicating factor to this. And then on top of that, I want to talk a little bit about the economics of investing in education. For that third tier of university that is more about educating, I'll call it your more common individual, the graduation rates are typically low, typically less than 50%. And there's a million factors for that. I mean, a lot of those folks just might have more going on in their day-to-day life on top of maybe not having like the same studious foundation that someone that is accepted into an Ivy League institution would have had to develop to get into that Ivy League education. So there's ways to attack that. But generally, the point I wanted to bring on that front is if you find a way to get basically every adult that you find to graduate from a post-secondary education, the return on investment of that is roughly 15% per year. So if you spend $100 on education, And again, this is according to this article. Your tax base for the next 30 to 40 years after that individual graduates from college grows for that individual person's like salary and everything else at 15% a year, which grows your tax base, which allows you to reinvest in things that are meaningful to your local or state government. I just don't feel like that's talked about enough. And Doogles, I hope I'm articulating that correctly, but I wanted to highlight that point first and foremost before we talk about tier 1 and tier 2.
Yeah, and it's what people broadly that are very supportive of education kind of say at the high level is that the problem with politics and education is that people are looking for their next election cycle. Like they're saying, what's the short-term gain that I can get such that I get reelected? And education investment is more of a long-term gain because you have to invest in it, and then 20 years later, you're not quite that long, but like you have to invest in it, get the changes made. Then people have to go to school. Then people have to get the better jobs, right? It takes quite a while to start to see the return, but the return is definitely there. You have to educate the population. And in the US, we've gone from top tier, like numero uno, to second tier with regard to where we are in education. So yeah, I think you're articulating that really well. The pricing dynamics are crazy between those types of organizations. And you could even break those tiers up even more if you wanted to.
Oh, you absolutely could. So first and foremost, I just think that needs to be heard and reiterated. Like, it's very easy I'll talk about a state governor. It's very easy when a state governor faces a financial crisis on a yearly basis to pull money out of post-secondary education. That's an easy cut to make. In my eyes, we're consistently talking about government spending with some guide towards return on investment, right? That's one of the worst places that you can cut for the long-term health of your state. So if there's misinformation about that, it's your job as listeners of this show to squash that because it's just ridiculous.
Some of these public schools, quote unquote public schools, are effectively becoming private schools.
Absolutely, they are. Because you're not public if you don't get any support from your state.
Exactly. And so the pricing dynamics, not between the tiers, but just for tuition, it gets really complex. But we're not setting ourselves up for success. I'll tell you that much.
Can we talk pricing dynamics among the 3 tiers?
Yeah, sure.
So that top tier is it's in an entirely different stratosphere than the rest of the institutions. One, there's already high demand for the good they provide, largely because of the name and reputation that comes with that. In most cases, that name and reputation leads to an average additional yearly income of around $20,000, which speaks in part to the additional supply. So in a tier 1 institution, but for simplicity here, we're just going to talk about Ivies. If you raise the tuition, it actually, in a lot of cases, increases the demand. There's already high demand for your product. And then as price goes up, there's this human psychology that goes, oh gosh, Columbia if they just raise their price by $10,000, it must be worth even more.
It's like Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, right? And then the people that go to Columbia either, one, come from really solid, wealthy backgrounds, so the cost doesn't effectively matter, or if you come from average to below average incomes levels, now all those institutions, because their endowments are so great, they're going to cover the cost of tuition for you. So in that fully elite world, the pricing dynamics almost don't matter at all. Like, it's almost completely inconsequential. You either have the means to do it or it's free. And even if you take on a little debt to do it, you're going to make more money for the next 40 years of your life to pay down that debt really, really quickly. The problem, as I see it, or the challenge, is that Americans typically think of like that Ivy League model as the model for education without realizing how different it is for your Ivies than it is for your public schools than it is for your, I don't know, more community college type schools.
And the other point that sits in there is you were talking about how it's inconsequential to I'll call it the end user, right, to the student, and they're the students that get the most benefit. It's also within what you were saying there, exactly, because of all the sources of funding. So you get the most benefit and you need it the least.
Yes. I'm just fascinated by this. And I've talked too much because I know you're an expert in this space, Doogles, but like this stuff, I could talk for hours and hours, but I'll spare our listeners on that. It's a really great article. There's also another great article that came out that talks about student debt. There's a film and video arts program at Columbia where the average student leaves with about $200K in debt, and their average salary is about $30K. And so there's an interesting debate on those dynamics.
Yeah, the thing, we can transition after this if you want. The thing that I wish that people thought of differently within education when it comes to the financial side is when you think about the cost per, it's often viewed as cost per year, like tuition per year, tuition per semester, quarter, whatever, tuition per credit. I wish they thought about this as the cost per degree or cost per like dollar of salary after, because it's that, going back to the point you brought up, the completion rates for some of the less effective schools, I'll just call them, are so low that you could say that their tuition is, let's say it's a quarter of what the tuition of a different school is. But if your graduation rate is a 10th, and so you just end up leaving with no degree and you're in debt, then your cost of degree, it changes so much. And I just wish that people thought about the economics in that way. Or the other thing is the cost per dollar of salary afterwards, or whatever unit you decide to choose. If you don't graduate, obviously that doesn't shift either. It's a different way to think about this. And it's so important for people to think about it that way. Otherwise, you end up just spending money on nothing effectively.
All the time, right? And so psychologically, it's really hard to think you might be the human that might not graduate. But I'd say that student that maybe goes to school for a year or two, takes out debt to do it, doesn't end up graduating, and never sees their salary increase, they almost spend the money without getting the benefit, right? And that's probably the toughest investment, and where the student gets, I'll say, screwed the most. I mean, that's coarse, but that's the type of stuff where, for that tier 3 education that's critically important for our society's growth and even our economic growth, it would be really unfortunate if those costs were rising rapidly, and I'm sure they have been. That's the type of stuff where there needs to be a better safety net, I think, for everyone, to allow those students to take the plunge and then hopefully successfully finish the degree, because the benefits are enormous there.
Yeah, we could talk about this forever.
It's so on that point, hit us up. Tell us if you like this conversation. We can bring on guests. Doogles and I both found this fascinating, and we could definitely do a deep dive on education. There's so many layers of the onion to peel back here. So I think that means we might be going to healthcare, Doogles.
Let's transition to another broken system.
This is also part of the Mark Andreessen conversation. Just wanted to follow up here because there's some really interesting stuff. So the Wall Street Journal did an awesome article on this. I'll hit you with just a couple facts, and then you can tell me to be quiet. Here's a breakdown of how much it costs to get an angioplasty and stent by county for select counties across the U.S. You ready for this? You want to turn this into a quiz?
No, not really. I don't know if I can name multiple counties. So I just don't feel like being that
I'll
embarrassed.
give you the county, you give me the cost. All right. Los Angeles, California. How much do you think this thing costs?
$12,000.
12,000 is almost right. Looks like the low end of the spectrum is maybe 15, 17. But if you go to the wrong hospital or have the wrong insurance, you can have the exact same procedure performed. Exact same. I'm talking same bags of IV fluid and everything. Same amount of meals. And you could pay $125,000.
Holy matrimony.
The range varies from like $15,000 to $125,000.
When is a range not a range?
So let me give some background and some basic facts. So this is, I don't know who led this legislation, but I absolutely love it. Starting January of 2021, it was mandated that hospitals release this data. Before, this data hasn't even been available. So there was no way to even reconcile.
So 6 months ago, you're talking about.
Yeah. there's a couple startups, which, gosh, I might go work for these. This just sounds fascinating, that are basically turning into mini healthcare analytics companies to digest this data and then try and make sense of it. And I would assume, so when it's this inefficient, the potential business case gets kind of exciting, because if you could tell the patient in Los Angeles, hey, go to this hospital and pay 15,000 instead of go to this hospital and pay 125, and you say, and I'm going to take 10% of your cost savings or something, like that could be monumental. So I'm also intrigued by this space. Let me give you a few more just figures here in terms of different counties. Los Angeles is the worst in terms of range. Franklin, Ohio is the best in some ways. All the hospitals in Franklin, Ohio charge $39,945 for an angioplasty and stent.
So no chance of savings, but you know that you're getting gouged. Like,
yeah,
at least
there's no range.
You go in
There's
eyes
no
wide
range,
open.
but you're getting ripped off. So like better and worse, all at the same point. Hartford, Connecticut, the range is almost $0. I assume that means that insurer negotiated this really well to like $60K. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is a range from maybe $2K to $25K. I mean, these things are crazy. San Bernardino, California is similar to Los Angeles, $15K to $100K. How do we even explain that you do the exact same thing with the potentially the same doctors and the bills vary this greatly?
It's so ridiculous. I don't know. I don't have any. I can't, I've got nothing. Our healthcare system is just nonsensical, and like the way that it operates, and whenever something isn't transparent, it always takes advantage of the people with the least amount of information, right? And it just, I don't know, gets me all angry inside. I'm like that little red guy in Inside Out.
That movie was sad, by the way, if you have kids. The main tilt of this article was kind of headed that direction, Doogles. It was saying that they're able to look at this data and figure out that cash payers, the uninsured Americans, which is 11% of the country, representing almost 30 million people, are typically the ones that get screwed most. I don't know that that's a huge size, but again, like, is that the right clientele to be trying to exploit? Probably not.
No.
So in Shelby County, Tennessee, if you look at a complex emergency room visit, the billing costs typically range between about $500 to about $5,500. At certain hospitals, the non-insured rate falls right in the middle of that range. At other hospitals, like St. Francis Hospital in Memphis, the range for insured payers was between basically $500 and $1,500. But if you pay cash, you're going to pay almost $3,000.
Wow. That 2x?
Yeah. Yep. 2x.
2x? And you have 1/10? Like, you probably have a tenth of the disposable income and you're paying twice as much.
I know, man. I know. Crazy stuff. Anyway, this article, let me give you the shout out in the Wall Street Journal. Really good journalism. Was called "Hospitals Often Charge Uninsured People the Highest Prices, New Data Show." It's in the health section of the Wall Street Journal. It came out July 6th. It's worth checking out.
Is it okay if we wrap with just a rant, just a spine in my thorn? Or no, that's not how it goes. The thorn in my side. the thorn in my side this week. I don't know why it really bothered me this week, but the definition of a bear market, I just don't like it. My issue.
Okay.
So what I recognize, and I'm cool with this, I recognize that whatever definition we choose is going to have to be somewhat arbitrary. Like we have to pick some number and say that if the market falls by this, then we call it X, right? It's the use of the phrase bear market, I think, that's a bigger deal. So 'cause today what we say is the market is a bear market if it goes down by 20% from its last high. That's the definition of a bear market. I don't have an issue with the 20%, but I'm cool with what we call a correction. And I just feel like that we should define a bear market not just by the amount that it drops, but also by the speed at which it comes back or something. Because you can't compare, like we compare what happened in 1998, right? In a quote unquote bear market that lasted a few months, or in 2020, a quote unquote bear market that like lasted a few months. We say that that's in the same realm as the Great Depression or the great financial crisis, and it like doesn't make any sense to me. I want to get your view on this because that thorn is just like really poking. I don't like it.
Oh, I have thoughts. This is like the weakest rant I've ever heard. It's a nice, calm voice. Like, oh, I'm a little
Oh, it's
disgruntled.
because my eyes get big. if you, I mean, I'm trying to like stay. I had to take some meds before I started talking about it just to keep myself at bay.
We have this is handled, dude. We have the Great Depression is called the Great Depression. It's not called bear market number 23. The Great Financial Crisis is called the Great Financial Crisis. Like,
no, okay, all right, nope. All right, now you got me going. You got me going now. So where this came from for me this week, I don't know why I got so tickled pink about it, but there's another article in the Wall Street Journal that came out, which I think is like a well written, whatever. But it's basically the article is about how valuations, the size, the overvaluedness doesn't necessarily dictate the length of a bear market or the depth of a bear market. Like that's what it's saying. So it was saying if you look at like the shortest or the biggest bear markets or the longest, right, the smallest bear markets, they don't necessarily correlate to the highest PE or the highest CAPE. And I like the theme of what the article is trying to say, but if you compare these bear markets, like they're not all really bear markets. You can't compare what happened in 1998 to what happened in 2000. Like those aren't the same thing. Like I would actually say that if you're saying that the overvaluation in 1998 like didn't lead to a long bear market, it's like no, because that wasn't a bear market. Like you had this short-term correction. The bear market started in 2000.
ooh, okay. Yeah, I'm ready to yell at you. All right, so
let's go.
no,
Ding, ding, ding.
when you try and tie to valuation, so I think there could be multiple things you have beef with. One could be the steepness of the drop. So I'll call it the slope of the curve, right? Is it did we head down for like 2 years to get to that 20% drop, or did we head down for like 3 days to get to that 20% drop? But another thing you're trying in here is almost valuation. So we like to talk about Tokyo in the 90s, right? If the stock market gets so irrational that you go to a CAPE of 100, a cyclically adjusted price to earnings ratio of 100, which is the highest ever recorded in developed markets. I mean, just absolutely insane bubble, right? And then you go 20% down from that. That's a bear market. But the valuation is still like the second highest valuation in a developed market ever. So what's your beef here? Is it the definition, the 20%? Is it that you want some tie to valuation? Is it the slope of the curve? Is it all of the above?
My issue is that I know you said that there are different terminologies like depressions, et cetera. I'd rather not call it a bear market. I think if you're using the word, if you're stating that something is happening with regard to the market at large, I feel like there would have to be something else. It could be the steepness of the curve or how long it takes to go down, or there has to be something else. I'd rather just call it like I'd put it in the correction bucket or something, because otherwise you end up comparing. And I'm shouting out the article. It was called "How Long Might the Next Bear Market Last?" Name of the article. Mark Hulbert. And this is not against the article per se. This is just what it raised for me is some of the time periods that are being compared in this article. I don't feel like should be compared because 2000 isn't the same as 1998. Like the bear market started in the year 2000. In March of 2000 is when the bubble burst, or the peak happened, I should say, and the bear market started. What happened in 1998 was just a short-term correction, no matter how big it was.
But they both went down 20%. Now, I think you want more precision maybe, because you could have a bear market that goes down 37% and a bear market that goes down 21%. And those could happen at different steepnesses. And you're saying it might not be fair to compare the bear market that went down 37% over 2 years. You're not saying that?
Well, the over 2 years part I am, but it's not the percentage. I think I would call anything, whether it goes down by 10% or 90%, if it came back within X period of time, you can call that 6 months. You can call that a year. I'd still just call it a correction.
You just want to exclude certain periods from analysis.
Yeah, like I just exclude 1998. I don't think that was a bear market.
And you in would 1998, exclude 2022.
I'd exclude 2020. I don't think that was a bear market.
Wow. I mean, this is really nerdy financial talk. Congrats, we've achieved something here.
Isn't that what we do?
Apparently. I think we should bring Mark on the show, and you should tell him that you think his analysis sucks,
No,
and
I
we should
didn't
see
say
how that
I'm
goes.
not. No, I'm not saying that. It just raised for me. Do you feel differently though? Like, do you think that like last year should be called a bear market?
It just doesn't bother me at all. Like, I get what you're saying, and I think as I look at this analysis, I think I would like, as an analyst, I'd be like, oh, there's some abnormalities that I'm probably going to exclude to improve my results. But I think when you write in the financial media for like the masses, it's kind of like you don't want to have to spend the first 3 paragraphs of your article explaining that you changed the well-known terminology that people have been talking about for 100 years.
No, but okay, I hear you. But I will say, if one of the thematic takeaways that you want to be had is that the height of valuation does not necessarily dictate the depth or length of bear market,
Yeah.
that you should make sure that you're comparing apples to apples in this case. Because if you say, look at the valuations that existed in 1998, they didn't lead to a big bear market. You go, well, hold on, let's just fast forward 18 months. And yes, they did. Like, that is but as long as you call that a bear market, then you can say, sure, like that's true.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And if I had an analyst bring this to me, that would probably be some of my first pieces of feedback is let's make sure it's more like apples to apples, and then we'll get better conclusions as a result of that. So let's redo the study, dude.
Sorry for my nerdy rant. I'm actually not. I'm really not. I'm not sorry for it, because I think this is an interesting topic, and I was like, oh, I want to, read on this, and I was like, I'm glad Mark brought this up. I think it's worth looking at and reading. And then I was kind of like, but that definition, it's always kind of, I think, bothered me a bit, that definition. And then this is probably why. But look, It's just the analyst in me.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap. Come get some stickers. Hit us up. We'll shoot you some stuff. Don't forget your email address. And we are generously going to cover the cost of stamps here, I think, until we can't afford it, which could be soon.
Well, if stamps.com, starts raising its rates, then no.
Now that they're acquired by a private equity firm, we're going to have to hand deliver.
Exactly. So at Skippy Doogles on Twitter, skippydoogles@gmail.com. Always up for listener mail. Thank you, and rate and review the podcast.
Peace.